This is Dylan Moore and Nima Major of Irita TV coming to you today. It is Monday, April 4th, 2022, and today we are going to commit some economic heresy. So in light of the recent invasion of Ukraine, Russia has made some, we'll call them, interesting decisions on the economic front that have caused quite a ruckus in some economic circles. Specifically, we saw a post that went viral from Gab account Neon Revolt discussing what he felt would happen what he felt will happen as a result of these decisions that have come from Russia on the economic front. So Nima and I, being the economic heretics that we are, felt that this would be a great basis of discussion for an economic show. So Nima, are you ready to be indicted for economic heresy today?
Yes, I'm excited.
So what are the two big things, or at least supposedly big things, that have come out of Russia recently on the economic front that has caused such a ruckus?
Well, number one, the resumption of their gold purchases, which some people are interpreting as a turn towards a gold standard policy in Russia, and the other, the fact that Russia has made rubles the mandatory payment method for their oil exports,
which of course is we're hearing the story again that we've been hearing for a long time, and it's more like, here's the story, and it's actually happening now, of the petrodollar is going to fall, the petrodollar is going to fall, the petrodollar is going to fall, because now here's Russia demanding its oil and gas reserves in rubles. So I think it'd be fun if we pulled up this Gab. I have this gut reaction to call it a tweet, but it's not a tweet, it's a Gab. And let's go over it and see what's being claimed, because I think what is being claimed here is very, very common claims that we hear from all sorts of angles on this topic, and see if we agree or not. So you got it pulled up?
Yeah. All right. So here it goes. I don't think people realize what just happened over the past few days, so I'm going to try to explain what I'm seeing. The Russian central bank pegged 1 gram of gold to 5,000 rubles, currently about $50. At the same time, Putin made it so that Russian gas and oil can only be purchased in rubles, meaning Putin basically just pegged Russian oil and gas to gold, using paper rubles as a proxy. Meaning, Europe will need to either buy rubles from Putin in gold in order to buy gas and oil, or they will have to buy directly in gold, which means there will soon be a lot more demand for rubles. Currently, the forex rate for rubles to dollars is about 100 to 1. This was written on March 25th, by the way. But with 5,000 rubles now equaling 1 gram of gold and oil being priced directly in gold, you're going to see a massive price disruption in these forex markets in terms of how much gold a dollar can actually still buy. Foreign countries holding our dollar debt notes in reserve will see less of a use for them and will want to start dumping them in order to get something more stable, something which holds its value. Basically, any currency pegged to gold now will fit the bill, which means that those countries like Japan, will be dumping their dollar debt as fast as they can. They're not going to go down with the ship, and they will move into more stable currencies like the ruble, which will have a deflationary effect on the ruble, making it more valuable over time, which means Putin will be able to repeg the ruble to gold at whatever rate he wants down the line. It's 5,000 rubles today. Tomorrow it might be 500, and then 100, and then 10. It also means all those excess dollars being dumped by foreign nations are about to come home and cause even worse hyperinflation than we're seeing. Is it any wonder Biden is up on stage pleading with Europeans for regime change in Russia? He's about to have masses of angry and starving people marching through the streets here at home, demanding answers.
So that's I don't know if bleak's the right word. Extreme's the right word to describe what's about to happen. But when we first read this, I think both of us had a very similar reaction, which is I don't believe that A, some of this is accurate, and B, any of this necessarily follows from the two basic points, which is Russia now wants rubles for gas and oil, and the supposed pegging to gold. So let's just take it from the beginning here. So I got it pulled up on my phone. That's why I keep looking down here at my phone. So the Russian central bank pegged 1 gram of gold to 5,000 rubles, which at the time which was March 25th, currently about $50. So did Russia actually peg the ruble to gold?
I would say no. Let's read the statement from March 25th. This is on Reuters, but it's been sort of it's been posted all over the place. It's the official statement by the Russian bank, translated into English, I guess. And it says here, March 25th, the Russian central bank will restart buying gold from banks and will pay a fixed price of 5,000 rubles, $52 per gram between March 28th and June 30th, the bank said on Friday. The central bank, which suspended gold purchases from banks in mid-March to meet increased demand from the precious metals for the precious metal from households, said the resumption of buying would help ensure sustainable supply and the uninterrupted functioning of gold producers. Okay, so let's go back to the first paragraph here of this tweet. He says, Russian central bank pegged 1 gram of gold to 5,000 rubles. Doesn't really seem like that's what they did, because in sort of a traditional gold standard terminology, pegging a currency to gold means that you can take your fiat currency, such as rubles, take it to the bank, and ultimately it would end up at the central bank, and the central bank commits to
providing you with that gold. They'll give you gold for the fiat.
Providing you with a fixed amount of gold for the fiat, and that would be the peg. So, for example, we're pegging gold at $1,900. So that means if you were to take $1,900 to any bank in the U.S., they're required to give you an ounce of gold
by law.
That.
Here's the money. By definition, this much money equals this much.
Well, and
gold.
they would be rather acting as intermediaries for the central bank, because ultimately it's a central bank policy to do a gold standard. Basically means that you're offering gold at a fixed rate whenever people present the currency that you issue as a central bank.
And then that's not what's happening here. The opposite is what's happening with the central bank saying, we will give you rubles for gold if you give us gold.
The central bank basically said that we will buy gold from private banks at the value of 5,000 rubles per gram, which is about $52 per gram, which is actually below the market price.
And it's quite a bit below the market price, because the market price, at least as of this morning, and I don't think it changed that much from a week and a half ago when this post was written, is $62.
Yeah.
So this is Russia saying, hey, we'll pay $10 less a gram for gold. I don't imagine anybody rushing to go collect that prize money.
It would make no sense. And it sounds to me more like they've announced a certain level at which they will be buying the dips in gold. So it's an
investment policy, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
As a general policy of accumulating gold reserves in the central bank. So not really a peg, I would say, but rather a purchase commitment by the central bank. Very different from what we generally understand a gold standard to be, which is, like we just said, the bank offers a fixed amount of gold for currency, and the ultimate effect of it being that the fiscal authorities are restrained in their ability to deficit spend new currency in the country.
Right.
And we've talked about deficit spending and how that relates to corporate profits and the economy and all those kinds of things in general. Our viewpoint in general is that a gold standard tends to be a deflationary policy / recessionary policy, because
it enforces austerity. Sorry to interrupt.
It enforces austerity, and it declares an arbitrary level at which the government will be fixing the entire gold market's price. So basically, it's kind of, I always like to call it a fiat money system with a fixed gold price. You're still doing all the fiat money things, which is issuing money, taxing, etc. But you've made it your country's or your government's commitment to keep the gold price fixed at a certain level. So your commodity price fixing, essentially.
It's basically what it is. Yes.
Right. But that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. So there's already, in my opinion, there's already a huge problem with the very premise of this whole
first premise.
This whole gap.
But the second premise seems to be pretty accurate as far as I'm able to tell, which is at the same time, Putin has made it so that Russian gas and oil can only be purchased in rubles. As far as I know, that is true.
Yes, that is true. And we've seen the ruble recover quite impressively, and maybe it's related to that event. I don't know. But let's read on.
Keep reading. So we've had two observations. This is basically the logic, right? You make two observations and you extrapolate a piece of understanding. So, meaning Putin basically just pegged Russian oil and gas to gold using paper rubles as a proxy. So, I don't see how this follows in the slightest itty-bittiest bit.
Right. I mean, it would only follow if you thought, if now suddenly the ruble is the same thing as gold in your mind, because you think that Russia is now on a gold standard. So then he infers from that, well, basically oil and gas has been pegged to gold using paper rubles as a proxy. Not the case, because there's not even a gold standard.
Well, even if there was a gold standard, that doesn't mean gold is the only place you can get rubles. Right. I mean, so there is a gold standard, and then we will, if you bring us gold, we will give you rubles, and then you can use that to buy oil and gas with. Sure, I could also get rubles by buying from selling something in Russia, or buying them on the foreign exchange index or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. Even if there's a gold standard, that doesn't mean oil is pegged to gold. Right.
Plus, there is no gold standard, so
that really matters. That's the most important point, right?
Meaning, Europe will need to either buy rubles from Putin in gold in order to buy gas and oil, or they will have to buy directly in gold, which means there will soon be a lot more demand for rubles. Well,
we just
because
there
is no peg. Yeah, there is no peg. There's no real gold standard. It does not. People don't have to buy rubles in gold. Countries may just be exporting to Russia and earning rubles that way. All kinds of ways in which people can obtain rubles that do not involve them selling gold for rubles.
Although I will say, I think this is important to point out. If indeed that they're saying you have to spend rubles to get the oil and gas, and if Russia is a net exporter, that typically means foreign currency is coming in and rubles aren't really going out that much, right? Because if I sell something to Russia, my thing goes to Russia and rubles come back to me. Well, it's a net exporter, so there's more things going out of Russia and other currencies coming into Russia. By saying, okay, if you want to purchase this export, you have to pay us in rubles. That makes all these other countries that say, okay, we want this oil and gas, we have to find rubles, we have to go find them some other way, right? So, I mean, I do want to emphasize we're not playing down that nothing happened here. However, I think this interpretation is quite a bit off. And
the interpretation is wild. Yeah.
Yes. So I think there could be, and there probably very well will be, huge economic implications, because suddenly, well, how do we get rubles? I mean, yeah, we can go. I mean, and maybe the answer is just simply we go buy them on the foreign exchange index, and then we buy our gas, and ultimately that doesn't really do much, right? Because if the rubles are on the foreign exchange index, I need it to buy oil and gas. I've got euros. I buy 1 million rubles or 10 million rubles for 100 million rubles for 1 million euros. I buy my oil and gas, and so basically I took the rubles out of Russia and then put them back into Russia in order to buy the oil and gas. So I mean, it
changes the timeline of the events of exchanging currency at one point or another.
But the end result isn't that much different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So continuing, currently the forex rate for rubles to dollars is about 100 to 1. I think we're now up to 83 to 1, but at the time of this gap, it was 100 to 1. But with 5,000 rubles now equaling 1 gram of gold and oil being priced directly in gold,
which is not,
you're going to see a massive price disruption in these Forex markets in terms of how much gold a dollar can actually still buy. So here he's making a prediction that if you're, inclined to invest, could be useful to you, except there's no practical value to this prediction, because what does it mean? A massive price disruption in these Forex markets. I don't know what that means. What direction, which asset, what am I buying? What am I supposed to short or whatever? Mm-hmm. In terms of how much gold the dollar can actually still buy. Well, we've not seen much ever since this has happened. The gold price has meandered around.
Kind of like it usually does.
Yeah, well, it did rise quite a bit actually right after the invasion. But then since then, it's sort of been at a 1930 level or somewhere around the 1900s. Mm-hmm. It even went as high as 2000 when people were absolutely freaked out. But it's now back to some level. You can still buy your gold for dollars. There's no major disruption, no major disaster on the U.S. side of things.
And if you have dollars in Europe, for example, and you want to buy Russian oil, you could just do what we said, which is buy some rubles on the foreign exchange market and buy your oil.
Right.
Yeah.
Continuing, foreign countries holding our dollar debt notes in reserve will see less of a use for them and will want to start dumping them in order to get something more stable, something which holds its value. So that's the never-ending tale of foreigners dumping U.S. assets.
Well, and then I think we got to read this to understand the previous one. So he's saying we're going to see a massive disruption in the Forex markets, and then he says, okay, it's the dollar that's going to dump. So I think that's the prediction here, is that the dollar is going to fall in value in the Forex markets, right? Mm-hmm. So why would that happen or not happen, Nima? Why would these foreign countries start dumping all their dollar reserves, even if
they would not? So if everything is true around here, the ruble is now this great gold equal asset or whatever, then I guess his thinking is that the ruble is better than the dollar and everyone will just switch over to the ruble for some reason. Mm-hmm. All the central banks in the world holding dollar reserves will sell their dollars and buy rubles, which would be assuming that they're interested in emerging market currency speculation with the country's most important asset base, which is the central bank's money. And they're just not in the business of doing those kinds of things. They will hold ruble reserves if they have strategic trade with Russia and if they have export surpluses vis-a-vis Russia. There would be a reason to hold rubles, but there's no reason for Japan to suddenly dump all its dollars and buy rubles with it, unless there's some kind of trading relationship.
I think you're getting ahead of yourself on the paragraph. We didn't read the Japan paragraph yet.
Right. No, but he's saying foreign countries holding our dollar debt notes in reserve will see less use for them and will want to start dumping them. So,
and to that point, I mean, Japan's one thing. Let's look at China, which supposedly has this massive $3.6 trillion dollar reserve or whatever the heck it is, right?
Right.
Are you telling me that China would want to begin dumping that? And if by dumping that destroys the value of the dollar, they would be destroying their own investment.
Right.
And all these countries simultaneously, if they all had to pull out simultaneously, and doing so drives the price down, they would all be saying simultaneously, we want to destroy the massive investment that we've made in this.
Right.
At our own expense. I don't see that being the case.
Right. It's not plausible. It's not feasible. And it's also not happening. I don't know if that matters. I guess empiricism kind of matters. But so China holds a bunch of US treasuries. And in this guy's view, now the dollar is crap and China is going to want to sell all the treasuries. So what do they get in return for the treasuries? They get US dollars sitting on their accounts. And what are they going to do with those dollars? Usually they just buy treasuries because they pay some interest on that.
Yep.
They're just going to sell those dollars wildly on the open markets all over the world. But what happens is just somebody else holds the dollars in their account.
Because someone's got to buy them, right?
Somebody is going to buy them if they want to sell them, So their holdings of U.S. Treasuries are maybe somewhere in the 2 trillion range. Total supply of U.S. Treasuries is north of 20 trillion, maybe even approaching somewhere around 30 trillion at this point. So there's really, even if they were to dump all their treasuries, it might be a blip on the treasury market, the most liquid market in the world, constantly people buying, selling all the time. But it wouldn't hurt us. I mean, that's the thing. It wouldn't affect us really at all. It would affect some people in China in some way.
Well, let's keep reading because let's see what the argument is here. So, basically, any currency pegged to gold now will fit the bill. Which means those countries like Japan's pegging to gold, whatever, will be dumping their dollar debt as fast as they can. They are not going to be going down with the ship, and they will move into more stable currencies like the ruble, which will have a deflationary effect on the ruble, making it more valuable over time. So, yeah, I think the argument being made here, and this is the argument that I hear a lot, is that when those dollars are sold from China and Japan and Russia, whatever, that they have to come back here. And once they come back here, that's going to increase the money supply to the point where we're going to start seeing more inflation. Or we're supposed to see hyperinflation.
And he's saying, he's suggesting even more hyperinflation than we have now. Did he already say that?
No, well, I'm getting ahead of myself too here. I guess I'm trying to infer what's being said because in these paragraphs, he's not actually saying that much. Right? If we already pointed out that dumping the dollar debt is not practicable and doesn't appear to be happening. And and again, this is all premised on pegging to gold. Basically, any currency pegged to gold would now fit the bill. Well, no currencies pegged to gold. The ruble is not pegged to gold. So I don't know what to say about this. But then there's also this. So the last paragraph I read, which will have a deflationary effect on the ruble, making it more valuable over time. This is really important that for some reason a lot of people miss, and it has to do with this notion of like inflation, bad, deflation, good. The reality of the situation is inflation has consequences and deflation has consequences. And particularly if you're a net export nation, deflation doesn't actually benefit you very much because that makes your goods that much more difficult to export. So, for example, Japan, I know, has kept its, at least attempted to keep its currency weak for decades because they know they're a net exporter, and by keeping by keeping goods cheap, by keeping goods cheap on the international market, everybody wants to buy those items. If the Japanese currency, again, for example, were to get more and more valuable, which is to say $1 bought fewer and fewer yen, then the person holding the dollar would go, well, maybe I don't want to buy from Japan because things got more expensive all of a sudden. So deflation, I'm not saying isn't good for some people, but there's consequences, and one of the big consequences is you become less attractive for exports. And Russia is a net exporting country, so I don't think that's they're the first thing that they want to go after.
Well, it's deflation / austerity policy is bad for a country for many reasons, not even discounting foreign trade considerations or whatever. It's going to be a destructive domestic policy to deprive your private sector of net private savings that it needs. And it's also not happening. So,
we've mentioned this in a show with Stefan Molyneux. I don't believe we've mentioned this here. Is that deflation? There's also this economic idea that prices, whether they're going up or they're going down with the supply of money, very quickly match, kind of like water finding its own level, right? Everything's the prices are going to very quickly adjust to whatever the equilibrium is. That's not really the case. And when you have a deflationary market, it's not that okay, all the prices are just going to go down simultaneously and everybody will have more purchasing power. What ends up happening is the people have less access to money because it's getting more scarce. Suddenly they can't buy anymore. The businesses go, well, nobody's buying the stuff, and if I lower the prices, I can't afford to pay for labor anymore, so they just go out of business. And it has this ripple effect that really destroys a lot of aspects of the economy. And again, I'm not trying to make the case here that inflation is great and I want to have more inflation, because inflation sucks and we're having a lot of it and I don't like it. But to just say, okay, deflation, good. Let's turn on all the deflation, and we'll all have we'll have much more purchasing power. Yeah, if you have any money to purchase the stuff with,
or a business or a job left in an austerity economy.
Exactly,
that's just what happens.
Moving on.
So we read about the deflationary effect on ruble, making it more valuable over time, which means Putin will be able to repeg ruble to gold at whatever rate he wants down the line. It's 5,000 rubles today. Tomorrow it might be 500, then 100, then 10. Maybe one. Maybe just 1 ruble is going to be worth an entire bar of gold one day.
I'm trying to be nice, but this is such
quite
a
the prediction.
Stupid thing to say. So stupid. So and this is just the first thing that came to my mind. First of all, if you peg to the dollar, if you peg to gold, right? We have this foreign currency called the ruble. We got to peg it to gold, meaning we will pay you gold by presenting us with rubles. What's to stop a bunch of really big billionaires, let's say Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and George Soros, all get together and they're like, we're going to buy a bunch of rubles and then just empty all the gold out of Russia, because they have to, they have this gold standard and they have to supply the gold in exchange for the ruble. Well,
right.
Go ahead.
Because the gold standard takes away your fiscal sovereignty inside your own country.
Absolutely.
Domestically. So you're basically surrendering your budgetary sovereignty to international oligarchs and billionaires who can, have the ability to buy and sell a lot of gold.
And then if we compound this, why would Putin say, okay, I was paying I would give you a gram of gold for 5,000 rubles yesterday. Today, I will do it for 500. Basically saying, I will take a 90% discount on you buying my gold. So the billionaires now it just became 1/10 as difficult to acquire all that gold. And he drops it to 100. He drops it to 50. He drops it to 10. Well,
also
now anybody could just go like, okay, let's just take all the gold out of Russia, get a few rubles, and we'll just take it all.
Yeah, but just keep in mind what's actually going on. We don't even have a peg at all.
Right.
Russia does not command this much power over the gold market, is the gist of it, right? You have a commitment by the Russian central bank to buy gold at 5,000 rubles per gram. And that's fine. They can do that whenever the gold price drops to 5,000 rubles. Now, let's say, we're changing this policy. We're stepping it up. We're now offering 500 rubles. We're now buying gold at 500 rubles per gram.
Then they'll never buy any gold.
They'll never buy any gold because gold won't dip to that level, and it's going to be a purely ceremonial announcement at the end of the day. That's really what's happening here. So even if this were to happen 55 and 100, then 10, okay, but that's all theoretical musings. It wouldn't have any effect on what's actually happening.
I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's still running on the idea that it's been pegged, right? That
of course.
Well, and I think the idea here is that if you peg the ruble to the ruble will become that valuable. And by making fewer and fewer rubles worth that gram of gold, because the gold has the supposed objective value, the value of the ruble will go up and have everybody say, well, gold is so valuable and so few rubles are worth that gold. I want those rubles because they're so valuable. But like I said, that just leaves the door wide open for me to take that 1 ruble or 10 rubles down and say, well, give me all the gold out of your coffers then.
Yeah. Plus
Right?
it also constrains your own treasury's fiscal sovereignty,
Right.
Or altogether eliminates it, because
you
now
wanted to peg to gold.
You now have to make policy, you now have to pass budgets with this requirement in mind that the gold price always has to remain at 100 rubles
Yeah, we were
RAM or
going to pay
10
for the military. We were going to pay for the schools. We were going to pay for the hospitals that were going to cost 100 billion rubles, but we only have 50 billion rubles of gold. So
Right, and
yeah, we can't do it. Sorry.
And sorry, we have to send all this money to gold miners for some reason because gold standard is great and deflation is great, and I'm saving the world by doing all these things.
Yes. Yeah.
This also means that all those excess dollars being dumped by foreign nations are about to come home and cause even worse hyperinflation than we're seeing.
Because so hyperinflation is what's happening right now.
Right, because we have a hyperinflation. I think hyperinflation is defined as something like 50% per month price increase or more, something like that. So we're not anywhere near that. We're seeing elevated levels of inflation, like you and I, Dylan, have predicted many times on this show.
And might I add, I'm interruptus Maximus, I know, but we're talking MMT here for anybody who didn't figure that out yet. We haven't said MMT yet, but as much criticism as MMTers have gotten for being like, oh, you guys just want to spend deficits and create money out of nowhere forever, like it just falls off a tree. Who were the first people at the beginning of the goddamn COVID pandemic who were saying, whoa, do not print a bunch of money while simultaneously keeping all the workforce at home? Randall Wray, one of the top MMT academics out there, right? Yes, we predicted this, right? There is the room to create more money as long as production goes up with it. And what we did at the beginning of the COVID garbage was to send everybody home, which curtailed production, and then just absolutely flood everything with new money. So yeah, you're going to get some inflation when that happens. But it's not 50% a month, like you said.
Right. There is productive capacity to meet the newly created demand because we're still underutilizing our productive capacity. We'll put a graph in of the industry capacity utilization in the US, which has been, around 80%. At some point during COVID, it even went down to 60%. So there's lots of room for new demand that can be met, that won't be instantly met by hyperinflation, because the factories are there, the businesses are there, the things, the houses, everything is there, right? It's
and people now have money, even if things are more expensive. People have the money to buy them.
Right.
Another point I want to say in inflation is this automatic assumption that inflation was from the increased money supply. Now, I say that with the caveat because some people will define inflation as the increase in the money supply, which is a completely useless definition. When we say inflation, we're talking about increases in prices, right? And less purchasing power with whatever the currency is that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So
aggregate price level increases. Yeah.
So I'm in the process of acquiring a business right now. And what I've found is that looking at, because you got to look at the last 3 years financials or whatever, that labor is the key issue in terms of pricing anything. And one of the things that happened during the everybody stay home and we'll pay you more to stay home than to go to work situation is employers had to figure out a way to pay people more to get them off the couch. Well, in the area that this business is being acquired in, the owner was paying $12.50, and he's recently had to up it to $15 an hour, which doesn't sound like much until you look at the numbers at the end of the fucking year, right? That adds up a lot. I mean, it makes a huge difference. And so the amount of money having to come in has had to increase, because how else are you going to pay for this increase in wage? So my point being is that when prices go up, to immediately jump up and down and say, hey, this is because more money was printed. I mean, I'm not saying that didn't add to it, but to just immediately assume that's the core issue, and particularly if we add supply chain shocks to that, there's a lot of stuff going on that could affect the prices of things that isn't just how many units of currency are out there.
Yeah, because the units of currency are always going up by and large. So by that standard, we're constantly in a state of inflation, or maybe even hyperinflation, and the whole observation of inflation becomes completely useless.
Yeah. And then going back to this is where he mentioned all the dollars coming home because they were going to be dumped again.
Yeah.
I don't like, is China literally showing up on the shore and like having dump trucks full of dollars? Like, okay, you guys can have these back. We don't need these anymore. Right? If they go to the foreign market, somebody's buying it, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're coming here.
Right. So they're sitting in foreign countries' bank accounts. It's possible that over time, this money comes back to the US. And in fact, we've seen that. We've seen Chinese conglomerates buy up US real estate and things like that. Yes, that can happen, but it's not a big one-time shock move that uproots the current economic situation that we're in. It's certainly something that is always, that's what's supposed to happen in foreign trade, right? If we're buying stuff from one country over the years and they're accumulating our currency, the idea is that at one point they buy stuff back from us, which also helps our producers sell things for dollars and evens things out over time. So that's not really a problem per se that can't be addressed or managed in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And we're not seeing a hyperinflation due to that. We're not seeing one without it. We're not seeing one with it either.
Yeah.
But that's what this gap ends in, basically, that we're going to see more hyperinflation because Russia just made a gold standard.
Yeah. Well, and then I think
that's not what happened.
This last paragraph elucidates the difference between an economic and a political decision. So if I read this last paragraph, it says, is it any wonder Biden is up on stage pleading with Europeans for regime change in Russia? He's about to have masses of angry and starving people marching through the streets here at home demanding answers. Now, he may have masses of angry and starving people at home marching through the streets demanding answers, but I felt like that was happening anyway.
Well, I mean,
right?
that's probably, if anything, that's going to happen because of your stupid response to what happened in Russia.
Yes.
Which is just create chaos on the global markets by imposing sanctions on Russian businesses and individuals. Like they're all guilty for being Russian all of a sudden. And it's not
turning on your own energy production, not deregulating
it's not something
the economy so we can work again. Yeah.
Right. It's like all the stupid ass responses to what's going on right now are only exacerbating the situation. That being said, I don't see these food shortages that they're talking about there. The wheat price has barely changed since around the day of the invasion. And it was much higher back in 2006, 2007.
And Nima is actually trading wheat here. That's why he's familiar with this right now.
Because I was expecting maybe that there's some export issues going to be coming from Russia with all their sanctions and from Ukraine. And Ukraine is a pretty big wheat producer. But we're not seeing any of that yet.
So you were hoping for the price to go up so you could make some money. And you didn't.
I was betting on it. Yeah. But what we're seeing right now is all these global geniuses of the World Economic Forum and the global politicians, Joe Biden, the incredibly intelligent investment genius Joe Biden, telling us there's going to be food shortages and there's going to be food shortages. That's all we're hearing now, as if that's the foregone conclusion that they're trying to bring about. And why aren't they rather telling us, here's all the things we're doing to prevent any possible food shortages from occurring, and we're not doing these sanctions because they're producing food shortages and blah, blah, blah. Why isn't there a giant effort? If they're so concerned about food shortages, why isn't there a giant effort beyond there's going to be food shortages and there's nothing you can do about it?
We're not even going to tell you to prepare. It's like there's going to be food shortages. Go buy some food and stick it in your basement or something. They don't even say that. Just there's going to be food shortages.
It seems to be a talking point they're trying to bring about just by repeating it and probably doing things, as we've seen, they're doing things that are disrupting international trade and that are actually exacerbating food shortages.
Well, one of the big ones I've seen, or at least I've read about, is that a lot of fertilizer or something like either a lot or most of the world's fertilizer comes from Russia. A lot of it comes from Russia, whatever the case. And I'm reading farmers who aren't going to be that they're saying I'm letting it go fallow because it doesn't add up for us to pay for the fertilizer to grow this year. Now, I've also read farmers saying, well, instead of planting corn, we'll plant soybeans because corn is so harsh on the soil. So I mean, I don't know what, and I mean, corn and soybeans are crap food anyway.
Especially the GMO crap.
We don't have our genetically modified soybeans. We're gonna starve.
Where's my soy latte?
No, I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who eat that, and there's a lot of people who depend on that, unfortunately. So yes, I don't want to make light of the fact that is actual food being affected. However, back to the point, this stuff's complicated, and this isn't necessarily something where you say, okay, here's the economic decision that's going to destroy the dollar, and all these things are going to be a result. First of all, that economic decision didn't even occur. And second of all, these other things may occur, but they're all political decisions, not economic ones. Right?
Exactly.
I was just thinking of, you read now about Bill Gates buying up all these farms all over the United States. And what's he going to do? Just wait until there's peak demand and then just turn them off?
Well, and there's companies making, or there's science companies working on ways to produce artificial meat and artificial food more and more. And I can imagine these are the kinds of businesses that are looking to benefit. Maybe that's meat,
maybe that's the problem reaction solution coming here, where it's like, okay, let's create the artificial scarcity in order for us to bring in, eat the bugs. Here's a synthetic meat. Here, at some point, we get grinding up humans and sticking them in cans and saying it, calling it spam. Probably what spam is already anyway.
Vermin.
Yeah. Yeah. So, our opinion here, I guess we could call it, is that this isn't even remotely accurate in the least little bit. And not that, particularly with oil, the gold thing, that's just a complete red herring. That's just totally not accurate. But with Russia demanding rubles for oil and gas, I don't think it's going to have as big as an impact as what's being claimed here, which is like, it's going to destroy the dollar. But it's I think there is a political move here.
Sure, it's not going to have an immediate impact, but it is probably a way to try and improve or improve the ties between Russia and all the other Eastern countries that are trying to create some sort of Eurasian economic union
bloc that can stand against the West. Yeah.
That's certainly possible. That's something that even Brzezinski has written about in the Grand Chessboard in the end of the 1990s.
And then speaking of that, he does mention, and you wonder why Biden is up on the stage pleading with Europeans for regime change. Maybe it also has to do with all the crap that's on him in the Ukraine, and he's freaking out about that. Maybe it's because Brzezinski even wrote back in the 90s how much Russia is an issue, and Russia's always been in the crosshairs. But it could be all sorts of different reasons.
Right, it's big political decisions that are being made here and that have been made years ago. And here's somebody who's, implementing those policies who can barely tie his shoelaces, right?
Yeah.
Many of these leaders are just
Do you think he can barely tie his shoelaces? Because I don't think he can tie his shoelaces. I mean, just look at the way he walks. I mean, it's just like this skeleton that's like someone's got a remote control that... I wonder if that guy's actually dead.
Brain dead.
They're just animating him with whatever crazy technology they have. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. I do want to say this. Neon Revolt, if you do end up seeing this, we would love to have a conversation about this because this stuff fascinates us, and we do also think it's important to at least get this as accurate as possible because we don't want to cause a panic for no reason, and we want to be able to make better investment decisions. Like Nima's always saying, I say it too, but I'm kind of parroting him. We always want to make better investment decisions about this sort of stuff, and it's just better if we know a more accurate model. So, Nima, before we close this out, anything last words you wanted to add to that? Cool. So,
no, we covered it all. I think the biggest thing right now is really Russia's on the gold standard, and that just seems to be so absolutely not true, that we just wanted to point that out, that what's really going on here seems to be much more benign,
yes,
than what's being sort of thrown out there.
Yes. All right. Well, this has been Dylan Moore and Nima Major with IRITA TV, which you can find at irita.tv, and follow us at the social media of your choice. Sans YouTube, we've been banned, so congratulations to us for that. But we're on Rumble, we're on Odyssey, we're on BitChute, and we're on Gab TV and Telegram and all sorts of other stuff. So go check us out there, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.